Okay, welcome. We're on page 73 today, page 73, and we are going to be doing our quadratic formula examples. So I know we wrote the quadratic formula yesterday, but at the top of page 73, I want you to write up top quad formula and make sure you write this exactly as you see it. That is our quadratic formula, and you want to make sure that you have all the parentheses, that square root goes over the whole thing, this divided by bar goes over that whole thing, and then 2a at the bottom. Pause your video, and once you've got that, go ahead and press play.
Here's our first example, example 1. We're going to solve 2x squared minus 36 equals x. I have pasted the little steps that you have on page 98 from your last video. So that means if you don't have these on page 98, make sure you copy them. Now, I also included these on the right-hand side as I go along, but I'm going to have you write them as we go. So just worry about writing example 1, solve 2x squared minus 36 equals x. Okay. Ready to go? Okay, so our first step is that we're going to put this in standard form. Oops, that is not what I wanted. Put this in standard form. Okay, so I would put that off to the right-hand side in my notebook, put a little number 1, standard form equals 0. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So standard form equals 0 means that I need 0 on this side or this side. Doesn't really matter which one, has to equal 0. So sometimes if you already had a 0 here, you'd be able to skip step 1. But since I don't have a 0 here, I can't skip step 1. So I do need to get this out of here so I have nothing on this right-hand side. So how do I get rid of this x? Now remember, you might want to change these two plus negatives and put in your invisible ones so you don't forget about them. Always a good idea. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 1x on both sides of this equation, minus 1x. So that way on the right-hand side, I have 1x, take away an x, I don't have anything left. I have 0. No x's, no nothing. On this left-hand side, you have to ask yourself, are any of these like terms? So this one here has x squared. This one here doesn't have anything at all, right? And this one here has an x. So are any of these three like? If they're like, you can combine some stuff together, but these are all unlike. X to the second, plain x, and nothing. So if they're all unlike, you just line them up in a row, highest powers first, because I wanted standard form. So highest powers first is my 2x to the second. Next in line is not my 36 because he doesn't have any x's. This guy has an x. So he's a plus negative 1x. So plus negative 1x. Be careful of your signs. And my third term, this negative 36. You see how nice it was that I did that plus negative? So now I know he's a negative 36. Okay, so I have standard form equals 0 now. So you might want to, in your notes, put a little arrow. Done with that, check. Standard form equals 0. That was my first step, taken care of. Number 2. Step number 2. I have to find my A, B, and C. Now remember, my A, B, and C are numbers only. Oopsie, numbers only. Numbers only. So my A is what? 2. My B is negative 1. And my C is negative 36. So A equals 2. Now it's going to be a shame if you do this big, long formula and you have your ABC wrong. So be careful. B is negative 1 and C is negative 36. Okay, that is my step 2. Step 1 is done. Step 2 is done. Write these steps on the right-hand side, and you could put little arrows pointing to different stuff. You could even color code, kind of like I am. Totally up to you. So now I need step 3, and that's plugging it into this formula. Very, 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 very carefully plugging this into this formula. Okay, so I'm going to have to, you pause, make sure you have the formula written on your paper right here, ready to go. Trust me, you'll memorize it. Okay, I'll do this step green. I got to plug this into here. So I'm going to plug it into the formula. So my formula starts with an X, and then it has the equal sign, following exactly what I have. An X, then an equal sign. I do have this big, giant divided by. So I'm just going to write that big, giant divided by. It's going to be really long. Okay, big, giant divided by. On the top of my big, giant divided by, I have a negative sign. I have to put this minus or negative sign out here. Boom. And then I need to get my B and put it in parentheses. Okay, so I have my minus. Now I need my B in parentheses. So I come over here and I look where my B is, and it's -1. So I put parentheses and I put Mr. B inside of there, -1. That looks weird right now, that negative, negative. Now we know negative, negative is actually going to turn into a positive in a minute, but we're just plugging in right now. Okay, the next thing we have is a plus or a minus. So I'm going to put the plus minus sign. And these are actually do mean plus or minus, not positive, negative. Now I need this big, giant radical. So let's put this big, giant radical. Okay, so under my big, giant radical, I need my B in parentheses with a squared on the outside of it. So let's find our B again. It's -1. So I need a B in parentheses. That's -1 in parentheses with a squared outside of it. Got that? B in parentheses, squared outside of it. Now I need a minus. And now I need a 4. It doesn't matter the numbers in it. This is always, always, always a 4, and that's always, always a 2. Just put it in there. It's part of the formula. So it's a 4. Boom. Put the 4 in there. Next thing I need, in parentheses, I need my A in parentheses. So look over here. My A is a 2. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. Parentheses 2. Then I'm going to need, touching up against it, my C in parentheses. What's my C? It's a -36. You see how if I missed that negative there, I'd accidentally put 36 and then everything will be wrong. All this work for nothing. So my C is a -36 and I need it in parentheses. -36. Look at that. I didn't even make my radical or my divided by long enough. Told you it's got to be super long. All right. On the bottom, under this divided by, I need a 2 and then a parentheses A. So all the time it's going to be a 2. Put the 2 there. And now I need my parentheses A. Parentheses A is parentheses another 2. Now, I have plugged that into my formula. Plugged it in. Check. Check. The next step I have to do is simplify. Do not try to put all of this in your calculator because guess what? It won't work. It will not work. It will not work. Do you hear me? It will not work. But you can put it in 3 chunks. So we could put this in 3 chunks. I'm going to show you the chunks. The first chunk is this first piece you can do. The second chunk is the chunk under the radical. And the third chunk is the bottom. So I always do this in 3 pieces. And then I simplify this part and this part and this part. And then I put it back in this formula, all simplified. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to simplify just this first chunk right here. Now, what do you think -1 is? What is -1? So if I were to negative a -1, I wonder if you could even put this in here. -1. Nope, it doesn't even do anything. Negative, let's see if it works with negative parentheses. -1. Never even tried this. Nope, it doesn't even do anything. Anyways, negative, they're going to undo each other, and that's just going to be a +1. So I'm going to be simplifying now. Simplifying. So this is my simplifying step down here. So I have x is equal to this stuff. The first yellow chunk is just a +1 because if you negative a negative, you get positive. And I'm going to put plus or minus. Okay? And I'm going to keep my radical. But I'm going to put all of this stuff that's under the radical that I highlighted yellow, everything except the radical, I'm going to put that into Desmos. Or even your handheld calculator is fine. I never tried it on a cell phone, so I don't know. So I'm going to do parentheses. What do I got here? Parentheses, -1, close parentheses, exponent of 2 in the air. Got it? Back down on the middle ground, -4, parentheses 2, and then parentheses, -36. Okay, and it calculates that for me, 289. So the number that's under this radical is 289. It's not out of the radical yet. It is not out of the radical yet because I didn't even put a radical here. And you're going to see the only time it will ever work is if it's a perfect square, which it will be in this case for this example, but the next one will not be. And on the bottom, I have a 2 parentheses 2, which is just a 2 times 2. So 2 parentheses 2, oh, hello, 2 parentheses 2 is just 4. Okay, so I simplified it in 3 chunks. 3 chunks. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this. I'm going to look at this radical, and I'm going to simplify this radical like I have been simplifying radicals, okay? I'm just going to go off to the little margin here and put my radical 289, because sometimes you have to break it down, and sometimes it's perfect. So if I look at this, if you go back to your perfect squares list, you're going to realize 289 is a perfect square. You could even check it over here. If you did not have your list with you, you could have put in radical 289, and you would see that it comes out to be a perfect 17 outside of the radical. So radical 289 is perfect. If it wasn't perfect, you would have to break it down and find a perfect square that goes into it and do all of the simplifying radicals. But since he's perfect, we love him. Life is good. Okay, so this becomes really a 1 plus or minus a 17. Now remember, when you did your list, it actually is a positive or negative 17, but we already have the plus or minus in our formula, so it kind of saves us right there. So we have the 1 plus or minus the 17 all divided by 4. Remember, the divided by is over both of these, under both of these numbers. Okay, so what plus or minus means, in this case, it means 1 plus 17 divided by 4, and then a 1 minus 17 divided by 4. So it's also going to have 2 answers. So watch how I do the split right now. I could simplify these separately. So I do the first one, I'm going to do with the plus. So 1 plus 17 divided by 4, that's going to be one of my solutions. And then I'm going to do my other one, which is 1 minus 17, all divided by 4. Okay? Now, when you put this, don't put this all cray in your calculator. Remember, you have to do the 1 plus 17 and get an answer before you divide by 4. If you put it all in your calculator at the same time, you will get the wrong answer. 1 plus 17. Don't be thirsty and put everything in the calculator at once. Your calculator can't think like that. So that's 18 over 4. And we could even do 18 over 4, right? 18 over 4. We can have the decimal 4.5, or if we wanted to have it as a fraction answer, we could have 9 over 2, whichever one you like more. I'm just going to put 4.5. So this equals 4.5. Running out of space here, 4.5. Now I need to do 1 minus 17 over 4. So 1 minus 17 is negative 16. So this is a negative 16 over 4. And you can probably do that in your head, but I'll put it in my calculator. Negative 16 over 4 gives me just negative 4. So I have 2 solutions, this one and this one. So my solutions are x equals 4.5 and x equals -4. Two solutions. Pause your video and make sure you have all of this. Like I said, that's probably took about half of your page. I'm going to do one more example. Pause, restart when you're ready. Here's the next one. Pause your video. Make sure you have all of this written down. Okay, I'm assuming you have it all written down. We're going to do first step. I would have these steps on the side so that I can follow them and point to them as I go. First step is standard form. I want to make sure that this equals 0. So I don't have 0 over here. I need 0 all by itself on this side. So that means I have to get rid of this. Now remember, you can do your step preparing plus negative and invisible 1. So I need to get rid of this -1x squared. That's an n squared. -1n squared. So that means I'm going to plus 1n squared on this side. And I'm going to plus 1n squared on this side. Now I'm going to notice, I could put it anywhere I want over here, but I'm going to notice that it is actually a like term to this. So while I'm at it, I might as well put it right underneath him because I know I'm about to combine those together. Plus 1n squared. Okay. Oh my gosh, look at that line. Okay, so since on the right-hand side, I get my 0, which is what I wanted. On my left-hand side, I am going to combine any like terms I have. Remember, the last problem had no like terms, but this one clearly does. So that's going to turn into a 9n squared. Remember, when I add, I don't get bigger powers ever when I add. Plus 4n plus -16. So I have it in standard form. Highest powers first. Check. Power of 2, power of 1, power of nothing equals 0. Bam. Got it. Step 2, I'm going to identify my ABC. So remember, ABC are just numbers. Numbers only. So I'm talking about my A is equal to 9. My B is equal to 4. And my C is equal to -16. Good thing I did my preparing step, so I knew that that was negative. Now look, if you try to find your ABC from this original one, I would be probably writing 8. And could you imagine doing this whole formula and having an 8 instead of a 9? That would be a mess. Okay, so make sure you do step 1. Okay, we got that. Now we're going to plug this into the formula and simplify. So I'm going to go x equals. Now, in this case, it's technically going to be an n equals because our variable is n. So I'm going to write n equals just so I remember it's going to be an n, not an x in this case. Same formula, though. Okay, I'm going to start with my big, giant divided by. I'm going to make it extra long this time. Maybe I did it long enough this time. Who knows? Okay, I need a negative sign. Negative. Now I need my b in parentheses. So look up here where what's my b? It's a 4. So let's put him in parentheses. Okay, next in my formula is a plus or minus. You see how slow I do this? Because you forget one thing and you do a lot of work for nothing. Plus or minus is next. Plus or minus. Next thing I need is a big giant radical. I'm going to make it nice and big this time. See if I made it long enough. Big giant radical. Okay, now it looks like I need my b in parentheses with a 2 on the outside. So my b is 4. Let's put that in parentheses with a 2 squared outside. Always -4. -4. Doesn't matter what's in the problem. It's always a -4. Now I need my a in parentheses. What's a? There he is. He's a 9. Parentheses 9. And a c, which is parentheses -16. Parentheses -16. And on the bottom, I need a 2, all the time a 2, and a parentheses a. So my a is 9, parentheses 9. Okay, he's all set in. So I plugged everything into the formula. Check. Now I need to do what? I need to simplify. Oop, I need to simplify. Okay, how many pieces can we simplify at a time? We're going to simplify 3 pieces. I'm going to simplify this, and then I'm going to simplify just what's underneath here, and then I'm going to simplify just the bottom. Look at that. I can't work my mouse. Okay, let me clear this Desmos garbage out of here. Okay, so I got a negative parentheses 4. I don't need to do anything with that. I could just make him be just a plain old negative 4, right? So I have n equals plain old negative 4 plus or minus. I mean, you might think about that as an invisible negative 1 multiplied into the 4. Yeah. But I don't know. I just think of it as negative 4. Plus or minus. I got a radical sign, right? Got to keep my radical, and I got to keep my divided by. Okay, but I can take all of this stuff under the radical, not including the radical, just under the radical, and I can put it straight into my calculator. I can put it in my handheld calculator, or I can put it in Desmos. Like I said, I'm not sure what your phone will do, but I wouldn't chance it if you always have Desmos. Okay, minus a 4, then a parentheses 9, and then a parentheses negative 16. Okay, so I put this chunk that's under the radical, and I got 900, I can't even read, 592. 592. On the bottom, I have a 2 times a 9. 2 times 9, I don't even need to do that, but I'll do it just for you. 2 parentheses 9, and I get an 18. I like to check my work anyways because, you know, when you do all this long steps and mess up one little thing. All right, what was the next step we had to do? We're still simplifying. This still does not look like a good answer, but we have to see if we can simplify this radical 592. So the first thing I'm going to check, I'm going to see if he's a perfect square because he's so big, he's not even on our list, is he? So radical 592, even though we know we can make our list longer if we wanted to. 592. Boo. Look at that. I cannot simplify that. So that means I need to find perfect squares that divide into it. So I'm going to go off in my margin here, and I'm going to put radical 592 because I need to come up with some perfect squares that go into that evenly. Okay? So remember, in your notebook, I'm going to pull this list up. In your notebook, remember how you have all of these perfect squares? You have a big list. So I'm not going to start up at 592, obviously. I need to start, because, well, you can start wherever you want. You're just going to have to start dividing by stuff. But I'm going to assume it's not going to be a big number. So I'm going to try to go down here and see if I can break it up. You have a longer list than me, so you're going to start dividing stuff. So you're going to put like 592 in here. And you're going to start trying big numbers. Like, let's try divided by 225. Nope, decimal. See, I'm trying all of these yellow numbers. Let's keep going. Now, remember, your list is longer, so you could start bigger, but I'm not going to type all of these in on a video. So you can pause your video if you want. Try a bunch of numbers. I'll try some numbers. 169 doesn't work. 144 doesn't work. 121 doesn't work. If you keep going down the list, I believe the first one that's going to work is actually 16. So 16 and 37, that's going to be the first one that works. Don't take my word for it, though. You should try it yourself. Where is the screen I was on? Right here. All right. Okay, I'm down here. I'm breaking down this 592. Okay, so this breaks into a radical 16 and a radical 37. Remember, these are still under the radical because I did not take any square roots of anybody yet. And 16 times 37 does give me 592. But 16 is a perfect square. We know 16 is a perfect square. And if we didn't know, of course she's on our list. So square root of 16 is a 4. So that's a positive or a negative 4, of course. So this is a positive or negative 4. And this radical 37 is not a perfect square. It is what we cannot take out of the square root sign. So This is equal to, this 592 is equal to that right here. Okay, so what I'm going to actually have is a negative 4 plus or minus a 4 radical 37 all over 18. Now, at this point, we would let you keep your answer just like this. Because you have simplified everything you know how to do. There's actually one more thing you can do, which you'll learn when you get to Algebra 2. So there's actually, this is a integer part, and this is an integer part, this 4, and this 18. These three are all integers, so you can kind of simplify them like you did fractions. So if I look at the 4 and the 4 and the 18, you might notice that those are all divisible by 2. So you can actually divide them all by 2. So if I divided this guy by 2, and this guy by 2, and this guy by 2. Now you might say, why aren't we dividing 37 by 2? Because he's really not a 37. He's a radical 37. And if you notice, if you put radical 37 over here, radical 37 is a 6.08 blah, blah, blah. So he's really not even a 37. But we would just do these three number parts. So actually, the final best answer that you're going to learn in Algebra 2 is going to be a negative 2 plus or minus a 2 radical 37 all divided by a 9, because you can actually divide these three by 2. But what we have in green right here would be a perfectly acceptable answer right now in Algebra 1. So that means you have two solutions to this. One solution is negative 2 plus radical 2, or 2 radical 37 divided by 9. And the other one is negative 2 minus 2 radical 37, all divided by 9. All right, pause your video. Make sure you have good notes. Maybe you should put notes about what you put in Desmos and things like that along your margins. Lots of steps. Well, really only 3 steps. Just got to be super careful.